Appreciate it. Now, according to the latest polling, President Obama is facing an uphill battle trying to convince Americans to support military strikes in Syria. The Pew Research Center surveyed 1,000 people and asked if they support a military strike in response to the Syrian government's use of chemical weapons. 29% said they support military action, but nearly half, 48%, said they are against it. 23% said they don't know. There's more. The survey also asked if Americans fear a long commitment in Syria should there be a U.S.-led military response. About two-thirds of those questioned, 61% said yes, 26% said no, and 13% said they just don't know. Finally, Americans were asked if they think a military strike will discourage further use of chemical weapons. Only a third of those questioned, 33%, said yes. More than half, 51%, said it will not deter chemical weapon use. 16% don't know. All right, joining me now is David Pakman and Jason Johnson. David hosts his own political radio and talk show and the David Pakman Show. And Jason is professor of political science at Hiram College. He also has worked in the campaigns of both Democrats and Republicans. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being here. And during the hearing today, when senators take this vote, and Jason, let me bring this to you, do you get a sense that they're not only voting for this limited action, but also for the consequences of that action?
They have to. You're not buying the chickens and cows, you're buying the whole farm.
Yeah.
And everyone who is thinking about this vote right now realizes that whether this goes belly up or whether this goes well, they will be held responsible and held accountable by the voters. So that's why they want to make sure that they get all their questions out now, because when they inevitably vote yes, they know this could go in any direction.
And David, is that why we're getting so many questions about boots on the ground and who is the opposition?
We are, yeah, and I think that it started off fine, and John Kerry was able to say kind of his first canned answer on that particular question, but then he ended up getting into a little bit of trouble and saying, well, no, I mean, we're not going to take it off the table, and not only that, but it's not what we want, it's not our intention, and it is not the plan, but there are these situations where, and to quote him, he said, if Syria implodes, he can't make any guarantees. So I think that was important, and when you look at the language, not the tone, but the actual words that are being said, there's zero guarantee that it won't escalate.
Yeah. Let me just ask the gallery, do we have the slot from John Kerry when he's talking about boots on the ground? Do we have that? If not, we can cue it up. All right, let's cue that up while I ask this question. We don't really know at this point. I mean, and there were a number of questions on that. We really don't know the nature of the opposition. And for anyone who says the opposition is made up of mostly, however you qualify that, moderates, there's just no way at this point to substantiate that kind of claim.
Right.
Would you agree?
Completely. And the idea of what a moderate is always shifting. Okay, the president of Iran is considered a moderate by some people right now. So we have no idea what the end result of supporting these troops could be, what could happen if Assad falls, and how that could affect Israel, Lebanon, and tons of other countries around them. That's why these senators are extremely concerned about this vote.
Okay, let's go to Secretary Kerry's bite. And David, you just alluded to it a moment ago when talking about the possibility of this escalating to encompassing boots on the ground in Syria. Let's listen.
President Obama is not asking America to go to war. And I say that sitting next to two men, Secretary Hagel and Chairman Dempsey, who know what war is. Senator McCain knows what war is. They know the difference between going to war and what President Obama is requesting now. We all agree there will be no American boots on the ground. The President has made crystal clear we have no intention of assuming responsibility for Syria's civil war.
I guarantee it. He can't do that.
He can't do it, and it's abundantly clear that that's where this line of questioning was going, and a couple of senators getting involved in it. And the concern is reasonable, right? Because we know that if you look at the polls, over 60% of respondents in the U.S. believe that if we do anything, which right now is just these airstrikes, it is likely going to lead to more, and it's a perfectly reasonable assumption to have.
Yeah. The idea of deterring and degrading Assad's capability, is that enough of a mission moving forward? The president has stated that one of his goals here is that Assad leaves power.
Right.
Either forced out or under his own volition. So then the question, we heard a few times, is whether or not regime change should be on the table for this mission.
Regime change is obviously on the table. It's been the intention of the Obama administration for years. They're just not going to say it right now. And again, that's part of the concern of every single person on this committee. If you look back to the votes that many of these senators have made in the past on Iraq and Kosovo and everything else like that, they know where this is going. Half of this committee has been around for over 10 years, and they've done these kinds of votes before. So they know that this is a song and dance by Kerry, because this is going to expand.
Do we take Syria's president at his word? He was speaking to a French newspaper or magazine, and Bashar al-Assad said that a U.S. strike would cause the region to descend into further chaos. How are we to read that?
Well, it may be true and it may not be true, but that's totally separate from whether he says it himself, right? Because even in the scenario where there is regime change, even if you listen to what was said and you think there are some moderates, let's agree to that, there's absolutely no way to know how many moderates and how many extremists and who is most likely to actually take control. Can you get the moderates together to do anything?
Yeah.
Can you get the extremists together to do anything? And any one of those groups, or ones that aren't even being discussed, could end up making the decisions or being in power.
And Jason, the resolution is being drawn up. What do you think happens when there is a vote on whatever the resolution is, and how narrow or how broad do you think the resolution will be?
If we look at the legislative history, it's also probably going to be a non-binding resolution. And so you notice a lot of times John Kerry would say, well, you can put in whatever language you want. But if they put a non-binding resolution, that allows the president to basically say, whether they vote yes or no, he can still do what he wants.
David, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting because the idea here was for the president to say, well, here's my decision. I'm not just saying you guys decide. Here, I say yes, and now you decide. And that would be a way to almost put it back, which is fine, we'll vote, and maybe we'll vote yes, but it's going to be non-binding, and now it is back in the hands of President Obama.
David, appreciate it. David Pakman. Jason Johnson, appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
A lot of time.